Okay, just going to restart the video because I had an appointment and I couldn't come back to it the other day, so just continuing the video on a different day. I've chosen the same outfit and I've changed the set a little bit, made it a little bit more dramatic with the plant. Okay, so I was talking about ruck. So the things, my comments were about ruck where I said that should be a special rate. That's just what I want. There's no evidence that that's going to happen or anything like that. But that's what I would do if I was king of the world and I was choosing a ruck rate. And then continuing on with my questions, how far can the vehicle drive in a day? A lot of cars are just made for general commuting, and so they don't have particularly long distance batteries. So a lot of the electric cars that are in the market at the moment just have 100 or 120 kilometers or 100 miles or 160 kilometers, 165 k's. Those are sort of normal amounts. 40 kilowatt hour batteries get you about 230 kilometers ish, and it depends on the efficiency of the vehicle. There's, I think, Hyundai Ioniq 28 kilowatt hour battery gets you about 210 kilometers. 40 kilowatt hour battery in a Leaf gets you about 230 kilometers. And railroad driving in real countries like New Zealand. Earlier Leafs with their 24, but typically actually holding 18 kilowatt hours of power because of battery degradation. 18 kilowatt hours get you about over 100 kilometers. Usually about 16 or 17 kilowatts to get kilowatt hours to get 100 kilometers odd. Short range cars in general, which you recharge every night or every other night, or I prefer kind of every night. For my commute, every night works with my car. And the idea is that you start your day with your battery charged or 80% charged or relatively charged so that you can drive all day doing your normal about town tasks, and then you can just plug it in when you get home the next night. And then if you want to extend the range on those shorter range cars, use DC fast charging or AC fast charging on some cars. But in New Zealand we have a DC fast charging network covers almost the whole country now, probably around 90% of the country, probably 95% of the population are within areas covered by DC fast charging. You have to be getting to some pretty out of the way in rural areas to not get access to a fast charging network now. There's a couple of places in New Zealand for shorter range cars. We've still kind of got that island effect going. The North Island is one network, the top of the South Island is effectively another network, and the bottom of the main part of the bottom, mid to the central to bottom of the South Island is another network, effectively, because a lot of the cars that we have currently can't get across the gaps in the network, but those gaps in the network will be infilled down the coast of the South Island and down the centre of the South Island, going south from Nelson down to Springs Junction to, what's the other area? I don't know, I'm trying to remember the top of Mid-Canterbury. There's the place with the springs. I forget the other place with hot springs. You can get across to there, but you can't get over the tops of the hill passes or through the big valleys connecting parts of the South Island at the moment because they don't have the range. And in the North Island, I think it's called Mokai, which is on the coast north of New Plymouth and west of Waitomo Caves. There's a bit there where there's a bit too far between charges and you can't get through there at the moment, but a charger in Mokai would probably allow most cars to drive between New Plymouth and I don't know, is it the King Country or up to the Waikato? So we've almost got really good coverage of DC fast charging around New Zealand, and for AC fast charging on 3-phase, there's actually not that many locations that support that currently. So there's only a few cars that seem to use 3-phase only with no DC. So mostly those cars aren't in our market. So DC fast charging is the way to go in New Zealand to get between cities And again, North Island, South Island, got a 10 kilometre gap there with a 30 kilometre ferry ride, something like that. Of course, you can take your car on the ferry, and there's DC fast chargers in Wellington and DC fast chargers around Blenheim as well. So you can get connected together that way. For a few places, you might have to stay overnight, but those DC fast chargers will come online over the next year or so. In many cases, the next couple of months, it's looking, and that will get you to drive everywhere. On the other hand, if you have those cars with the giant batteries with 300 kilometre range or more, Tesla, the new Kona, I think what's another one coming on? Nero, is it called Nero? So those sorts of cars with those 300, 400 and 500 kilometre ranges, you can drive those anywhere in the country already. There's enough DC fast charging all over the place to make use with those vehicles. But those vehicles tend to be pretty expensive, between $60,000 or $70,000 up to a few $100,000, which is not a daily commuter and not a budget car and not the ordinary cars that ordinary people drive for all their ordinary activities. So if you've got one of those normal cars, 100, 120k range, something like that, you can do DC fast charging. 1 or 2 charges in a day will allow you to drive 200 or 300, or an additional charge you might get 450 kilometres in a day. And for the vast majority of people, that works very well. The thing that limits the number of times that you can charge an electric car in a day is the battery cooling. So some cars, notably the Nissan Leaf, don't have actively cooled batteries. So the battery will eventually get hot after a number of rapid charges, and it will get too warm to be able to charge it in an additional time. And in some cases, parking up your car for an hour and not driving might allow the battery to cool down a little bit, but in summer it won't make a significant improvement in the temperature. And so some cars are limited by getting too warm when they're fast charged multiple times, which limits your maximum daily range. Other cars, let me think about it, ENV 200 van from Nissan and the Kia Soul have actively cooled batteries, as do some of the cars with much larger batteries, Tesla cars and some others have actively cooled batteries. So those batteries can be just charged and drive and charge and drive and charge and drive. You can just do a relay of charging and driving to get extremely long ranges in those vehicles. In most cases, you'll run out of land in New Zealand. So if you've got a car that can drive 500 kilometres and it's got active cooling, there's pretty much nowhere you can drive that's more than 1,500 kilometres in New Zealand. You literally run out of land. The country is just not that big. You could do a top of the North Island to the bottom of the South Island kind of relay. I think you can't get 2,000 kilometres or so. The South Island's about 800 or 900 kilometres long, something like that. If you take a snaky path across the South Island, you could clock up 1,200 kilometres. And in the North Island, the same. You could visit most places in the North Island for a 1,500 kilometre drive. So that's a little oddity of living on an island where there's just actually a limited number of places you can actually drive to. So it's a limit. Any other notes? What's the energy use per kilometre? Most EVs use about, I reckon, 5 to 7. No, I'll put it around this way. You get 5 to 7 kilometres per kilowatt hour, depending on how you drive. Bigger heavy cars will be on the lower end of that. You could possibly get down to 4 kilometres per kilowatt hour, 250 watt hours per kilometre. I tend to get about 7 to 7.3 kilometres per kilowatt hour just doing my slow motorway drive to and from work. Mostly it's on pretty well-formed motorways. I live on Kapiti Coast and I drive down to Lower Hutt. And if I take State Highway 1 and State Highway 2, a couple of pretty nice, smooth, reasonable motorways, not too many giant hills in there, I get pretty decent range. So in ideal 30 kilowatt hour car like the one I own, which probably has really 25 kilowatts of usable power, 25 kilowatts times 7 kilometers, and calculate that, if I equals 175 kilometers. Yeah, that would be my kind of like regular experience of just consistent driving in my 30 kilowatt hour car. That seems about right. If you're driving a kind of a normal Leaf, kind of like, I guess you're going to do about 16 times 7ish, 100 and 112, yeah, something like that. If you've got one with a bit of a better battery, maybe it holds 22 kilowatt hours times 7, kind of get 150 odd kilometers. I've literally never seen anybody drive a Nissan Leaf 150 kilometers with a standard 24 kilowatt hour battery. The best I ever tend to get is about 140 kilometers on a battery with about 95%, and a typical battery with about 75%. Yeah, you're going to get 125 Ks, something like that. I don't know if I can't remember what I covered the other day. Anyway, that was quite a few questions, and I think it's become a reasonably long video. I might split this video in two because it had that interesting interruption. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Ask questions in the comments, and share the video with other people. That's actually the most helpful thing you can do. Click the share thing and share it however you can on whatever device you watch on. Hey, thanks very much for watching. Hey, I kind of like this new set. Hey, it's Daryl again. Welcome to my new set. I just repurposed a work office to make a video, and you'll be able to see an inconsistency with this tree because it was fun. And I was trying to work out up in this top corner about where I should make that corner come to the corner of the screen, and then I discovered that it's not perfectly stable. You can kind of see it moving a little bit up there. So yeah, that's just fun for me.